Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar discussion video. In this one I just want to give some thoughts kind of heading into The Last Airbender on Netflix, the live action show. Just because I think we're at an interesting kind of point where we're really only, I suppose, expecting one final big trailer as like the last big thing associated with like the marketing of the show, and then the release, obviously, as you can see here, is in February. So we're not far away at all from this actually coming out. The whole actually learning and seeing stuff from this show is happening very, very close to the release. So I just want to put out some kind of thoughts here about kind of where I'm at, kind of right at the end of the year here, heading into 2024. I'll just briefly mention right at the start, I don't often do this, but I am, I believe, 8 subscribers away from hitting 10,000 on the channel, so it would be really, really helpful if I could get that kind of locked in. I have like a channel update section of one of my upcoming videos that it would be really nice to be able to confirm, yes, that I have hit the 10,000 subscribers mark. But anyway, let's get into this. So if you followed my content for a while, you'll know that this has never been a project that I've been like super hyped for, incredibly excited for. Initially when it was announced, I was a lot more sort of like, ooh, I don't feel this is the right, path for the franchise, because Mike and Brian were attached to it, and this apparently was the entire future of the Avatar franchise. And when that was the case, I really just felt like, ooh, this is not the path for Avatar that I want and I think is needed. So them leaving the project was, to me, actually a kind of like good thing. And then obviously Avatar Studios getting announced pretty shortly after that was a major positive. And that was where I think my perspective kind of changed on this show, where the pressure suddenly was off. This was no longer the only big Avatar project coming up. Instead, this is this extra thing, this attempt at doing another live action adaptation, but Avatar Studios is where the true future of the franchise is, because we're getting new animated content. But of course, we're in the situation, of course, where this is coming out first. This is sort of setting the stage for what looks to be the potential for Avatar to become a somewhat mega franchise if this all works out. And that's where the big excitement for me, actually, I think, is with the Netflix show, is that it's more on just the potential for this to bring the fandom back in a major way, in the kind of, in a way, months leading up to when we would expect Avatar Studios to make their first probably big announcements about what they're doing. And just the idea of, Avatar Studios kind of taking advantage of the Netflix hype, suddenly people realizing that Avatar is coming back, not just the live action, but the main content is coming back in a big way. That's where my excitement is, because I've noticed on the channel, like because I do a primarily Avatar channel, and I'm not super well known, I suppose, within the fandom, I tend to notice, based on like how many subscribers I get over certain periods of time, how much excitement there is sort of around the Avatar franchise. And I got a major subscriber bump by like 2,000-3,000 when Avatar came back to Netflix in 2020. I major jump on my channel from, I think, about like 5,000 to 8,000 or something like that. It was quite quick how that happened. But obviously, because I mentioned there that I'm not quite at 10,000 yet, it speaks to the idea that in the years following that, the hype has sort of dialed down. And what's kind of beginning to bring it back has been like the trailer and the stuff about this show on the horizon. You can tell there's sort of simmering hype when it comes to Avatar Studios stuff, but because there's been nothing super notable officially, we're not quite at that stage yet. So I'm just interested to see if that's what's going to happen here. My plan is to cover this show like quite well. Like, I'll do a trailer breakdown, because obviously, like, the document I have here is basically my trailer breakdown from the teaser trailer, which is really cool to kind of look through all these screenshots that I took before. But I'm excited to do this again for the full trailer, and especially to hopefully like hear what the actors saying dialogue. That was probably the main thing missing from this, and then of course lots of content when the show actually drops. And I'm hoping that I see that sort of surge in Avatar popularity again, and it will be hopefully at the right time, because I really, really hope Avatar Studios has a plan here to take advantage of what I think is going to be major Netflix Avatar hype. Like, this trailer has like 17, it's probably maybe at 18 million. I didn't check just before the video. The teaser trailer got a huge amount of views. I think more than the One Piece live action teaser trailer. So there is a major excitement behind this and a major interest in it. So they just have to nail the final hurdle here in terms of the last marketing stage. That full trailer needs to be good, and then just the show. Hopefully the show actually delivers when we actually get to it. And I think it looks like it's going to do, well enough that, it will deliver on, I think, what it needs to. So that's that kind of first section of just, I'm excited for upcoming major excitement, just more people talking, thinking about Avatar, and the franchise really beginning to show what it can be and really set the stage for Avatar Studios. In terms of the show itself, if you've seen some of my discussions like the trailer analysis, you'll know that I had a lot of praise for what we saw in the trailer. I think visually I'm sold on this show at this point. I wasn't sure if they would be able to do it, but especially the visual shots of like locations. Look how awesome Crescent Island looks. Really, really nice looking. Like, the Kyoshi Warrior kind of like dojo, great. This kind of fortress, whatever, whichever specific location that's meant to be. Omashu is absolutely the highlight for me. It looks stunning, like, ultimately. But I do still have questions about sort of the show beyond this, because I think in terms of an adaptation and in live action, the test is going to be these actors saying the lines, and then what they have kind of cut out, added in terms of adaptation, what way they've ordered the episodes of the animation kind of within the episodes that they have within this show. Because obviously we know, if we scroll down here, we have the episode titles. There's going to be 8 episodes to cover all of Book 1 Water. And this is what we have here. And it's an interesting one, because it's Book 1 in the animation is 20 episodes. We're splitting that into 8 live action episodes, which we don't know the exact run times, but all the rumors have suggested, like, hour long. Now, typically when that is said, that usually means like 45 to 60 minutes, especially with like streaming shows. It's usually somewhere in that ballpark. Now, what that means is, in terms of amount of time, it's actually going to be roughly on par. These 8 episodes, if they are an hour long, will pretty much match up quite well with how long 22 minute episodes are. Now, I'm assuming there will be some episodes that are maybe 50, 45, stuff like that. So I think it's going to be slightly shorter, but only by a little bit. A massive improvement over what was probably the biggest issue with The Last Airbender movie, which was, of course, they tried to tell the entire Book 1 Water story in, 95 minutes or something like that, I think is roughly the runtime of that movie. That was never going to work. And that's the other thing here, mentioning The Last Airbender movie, is that I'm pretty confident that when this Netflix live action comes out, I'm going to be perfectly fine with it. The extent to which, exactly how much I like it, I'm not entirely sure, but I do not expect that I will be hugely critical of this, because even with The Last Airbender movie, I tend to be within the fandom probably one of the more open people in the fandom to actually discussing that movie. And while I have criticisms myself, they are not maybe to the same level as like a lot of what you'd see out there. So if I'm relatively okay with the Last Airbender movie for what it was, I think this and the clear improvements we've seen already is going to be good. It's just sort of that extent of, to the fandom overall, which is more kind of picky when it comes to like, all these different bits and pieces and stuff like that, that has historically ripped the Last Airbender movie apart. Will they stand up to that criticism? They've succeeded ultimately, I would say, with the voice, the acting, the cast, and the fact that I think they've got through that without really receiving too much criticism. I think visually, like myself, I think most people are sold based on this first trailer. So it does just come down to acting performances, and then always the tricky thing with the adaptation: changes. What was going to happen with the changes? People are excited because it looks like we're actually going to get to see bits and pieces of the Air Nomad genocide. So that's a kind of addition that they haven't gone into really in the kind of animated continuity, but they're going into it here. So that's good. But then there's like rumors suggesting maybe some slightly maybe weird stuff surrounding maybe some of the finale stuff, as they try to incorporate a lot of material together in the end, that maybe that won't like work as well. How will they split the episodes correctly is the real question. Because you look at it here and it's like, okay, very clearly early episodes, Warriors of Kyoshi. Omashu, okay, the following episode, King Boomy. That's fantastic. First 3 episodes to cover roughly the first 5 episodes of the show, but then you realize, then you have 5 episodes to cover 15 episodes. So how's that all going to work together? And say we know a lot of the cast, so like where does Jet fit into all of this? Because I don't think there's enough time to devote like an entire episode to Jet, while also needing to do like the spirit world plot, go to Crescent Island, have the Roku scene happen, and then spend like probably the core of 2, maybe even 2 and a bit episodes in the north at the end. So especially the episodes that are, I would say, are probably like 9 to 16 of the animation. So Waterbending Scroll all the way up to like the Deserter. That's going to be crammed into like probably like the core of 3 episodes. Like that's going to be the big sort of telling point, because there's going to be cuts. We already know that there are not actors for specific characters. Will people be okay with that? And that's where I am accepting of a certain amount of changes happening here, because I think it's just going to have to. But I think the thing that always will annoy fans is making changes when it really feels like you didn't have to make that change. You will defend it with the idea that, we had to do it because of the change in medium. But I think doing it the accurate way would have worked. And that's where it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes. Just the flow through the season is going to be the big kind of part for me. Now, it looks like they're doing a lot of the early stuff pretty well, because like the trailer does seem like it is mostly the core of like probably the first half of the series, because I don't think we have in the trailer any shots from like the stuff in the north. It all seems to be from the early. Maybe they're just leaving out stuff that's in the Northern Water Tribe, but like they seem to have up to probably roughly the halfway point here within the trailer. Certainly at least the first 4 episodes. So that is interesting, and it's all, I think, looking good. Like Water Tribe stuff looks pretty good. Some of the shots that I showed you just before there seem to suggest, Southern Air Temple content. Now, interestingly, the episode titles don't seem to suggest that is directly being given an entire episode, but the Southern Air Temple episode 3 is really, really important. So I hope they give that one the time that it deserves, because they seem to be expanding on the Kyoshi stuff with Suki. That's going to be interesting. Even the fact that like Ozai has a very notable actor. He's going to have to be in scenes, and most of them are probably going to have to be new because he doesn't really appear at all in most of like book one. Similarly, the idea that like they have Azula May Tai Lee cast, how are they going to be incorporated into things at this kind of earlier point? Are they just doing the early part of book two well ahead of time so that Azula can just like jump into the spotlight in book two? We have to wait and see. Even stuff like this, the one line that we get in the teaser trailer is from Gyatso. It's a one line of dialogue we've seen from the show so far. Is interesting. So there's clearly the Sozin's Comet bit is going to be expanded, and I'm guessing we probably open up, and I'm assuming they're probably going to do a thing where probably Sozin directly is the one to kill Gyatso. So we'll see what happens with all of that, but it looks good, and I think that's the big thing of like, I don't think I've maybe been the most skeptical person out there about this live action show, but I think I have been in that kind of category of it's taken a while for me to get to a point where I feel like, do you know what, I'm actually kind of excited for this. And I think I am roughly at that point now. I still would maintain it is more so just the fact that like it's this major project, seeing how excited everyone is going to be, having already seen a glimpse of it with just how many like reaction videos everyone has probably seen of people reacting to this initial trailer. There is an interest in this that kind of goes beyond a lot of what's happened in the last few years for Avatar. The things that kind of maybe just work against it for me is just that I think for me inherently, it's always going to be a struggle to get me overly invested in what is ultimately just an adaptation. That, especially this style of adaptation, because I don't mind it when, like, say, a novel gets adapted into a movie, because you are going from a non-visual medium into a visual medium. That is something that I think is a proper, like, addition that is very, very worthwhile, and I can give them a lot of leeway because they're making this jump and the visual stuff is mostly going to be entirely kind of new. But in this case, we are going from a visual medium to another visual medium. It's just animation to live action. And because the time lengths of both season ones are going to be very similar, I just sort of, in a way, like, have that sense of, like, do we need to do this? Like, could we not do something else with the crazy budget that this is going to be given? But it's kind of, like I said earlier, roughly working out in a way where, even if you don't care about this show being a success will help Avatar Studios going forward to just draw more attention to Avatar and get things back to a really, really strong level. Like, I'm interested to a certain degree in just seeing some of this stuff in live action, but it's not this massive interest that I really, really need this, because for me as a fan, my focus is on the cartoon, the animation continuity, more so than this continuity, because that's the other thing. Like, people do get confused by continuities and stuff like that when this sort of stuff happens. This will be its own thing. This is not connected to the animation continuity at all. So what happens in the Air Nomad genocide that they show here, you can't necessarily take this and be like, well, that means canonically in the cartoon, this is also what happened during the Air Nomad genocide. No, this is their version of it. It's the exact same as the last Airbender movie, where they changed up lots of different things. Those changes don't affect the animation, and the changes here also won't affect the animation. So I think that's an important thing to kind of get across as well as we go through it. But yeah, that's always been my perspective on adaptations, is just I'm much more interested when it's truly like adding something. And for me, the addition here of just seeing Avatar stuff in live action doesn't super interest me, because I care about the fact that Avatar is an animated show. I love seeing Avatar in animation, and that's why Avatar Studios has me so excited. And it does frustrate me a little bit that we sort of in a way have to rely on a live action Avatar project to draw people in, because there is still this kind of sense around animation that it is for kids, and that if you're an adult who's not really into animation, that you'd be, you know, watching something that is below your level or whatever. When, you know, I think most people realize in the last few years especially that that is not the case. And I think like anime and stuff like that has been more and more popular over the last few years than they probably ever has been before. It is still something on a broad sense that you have to deal with. And so there is that kind of pro and con to this. It's going to draw people in, but it's also a little bit of like, why did it take a big live action project to draw you in when Avatar being an animation is what makes it so amazing and incredible, and it's what's going to be so interesting about the Avatar Studios content when it actually hits. So yeah, I think that's most of what I want to say here. It's just spending some time here to tell you my entire thought process on the show, and that, you know, I started out quite negative when it was first announced, but that gradually improved to now being a thing where I'm like, do you know what? Whenever the trailer hits, whether they give it to us as like a kind of Christmas end of year present type thing, or they do the probably expected maybe late January release for the trailer, I'm excited to see what they have to show us in that next trailer. Excited to do the breakdown. And then I'm interested, but also a little bit like daunted in a way almost by the prospect of, oh, the release of this on the 22nd is going to be tricky to cover properly. And that's what I'll end on here, is just the idea of this is a Netflix show. The entire first season is going to be out on February 22nd, which is exciting to a certain degree because you get this massive chunk of episodes, and it's this thing that you can, if you want to, take your time to go through. But for me, given that I want to cover it and do videos on the channel, there's also this sense of like, oh, I have to rush through this. Now, I think I've accepted already the fact that I'm going to take some time to go through season 1. I will attempt as best as possible to get some sort of a like initial reaction video out the day it all drops. But in terms of like episode by episode reviews, that is going to have to take a while after that. We're going to have to do those episode reviews one by one, because I think that's the best way to do it. And also, like, I think we also don't want to completely almost like spend the thing we've waited so long for in just one day. So taking some while to actually like go through the show and see what it's like. I think that is the best approach here overall, because it's especially like knowing going into 2024 that it's looking like the first half of the year outside of Netflix Avatar is going to be relatively light for Avatar, unless Avatar Studios finally decide to get going. Kind of need to kind of stretch out kind of the focus on this for a little bit anyway. And that's what I want to do. I want to spend time going through this and actually breaking it down, and not just having like an initial reaction, it's good, it's bad. I want to go through the episodes and see what specifically is really good, what is bad, do they make any like major mistakes or things that they probably shouldn't have done. That's what I'm actually excited for the first time in a while with Avatar, to just get episodes of something related to Avatar and be able to go through them. So look out for all of that stuff, of course. I'll be covering all the news that happens in news videos. I'll do a lot of content around like the trailer release and the release of the show. But otherwise, let me know where you are at with Netflix Avatar. Kind of what's your journey been since like the initial announcement, and Mike and Brian being involved and them leaving, where it was at after that point, and now where you're at now that we've seen, you know, we've had basically most of the preview marketing stuff already, and all that's really left is pretty much that final big trailer, the almost launch trailer effectively, and the show itself. I would definitely want to know what your guys' journeys have been with your thoughts on this show, but that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.